Welcome to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano, and we want to thank you for joining us for your one-stop shop for sports picks, politics and government chatter, and even some neighborhood restaurant reviews. Instead of going to 3 different channels, you can come here every week for the Pulse on everything you need to know. And as you can see, folks, we are not in studio again this week. We are here at Maxwell Place Park here in beautiful Hoboken, New Jersey, and this will be a special edition of the Pulse today. We won't have a picks and places segment, but we are happy to be joined by Mr. Ron Hine, who is the Executive Director of the Fund for a Better Waterfront, and Mr. Josh Sotomayor Einstein, who of course is our political analyst every week here on the Pulse. Gentlemen, how are you today? Starting with you, Ron.
Very good.
Well, we're happy
Thanks
to
for
have
inviting
you on.
me.
And we're so happy to have you on as well. Josh, how you doing today?
Here, it's nice to have Ron with us. Beautiful day.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, folks, a few weeks ago on the Pulse, we discussed the Union Dry Dock, which is this area of land behind us, this 3-acre land behind us, and obviously the controversy surrounding it right now with the New York Waterway purchasing this 3-acre piece of land and trying to use it for a ferry and maintenance site, while the city of Hoboken wants to have it as an open space for a park for our continuous waterfront here in Hoboken. But before we get into the Union Dry Dock, you know, and since we have Mr. Hine here as our special guest, we do want to get into a little bit of history about the Fund for a Better Waterfront, your organization. And I'm just curious, Hine, it's now, Hine, I just called you Mr. Hine. It's now been in existence for over 30 years, or close to 30 years, I should say, since 1990, you said,
That's
before
correct.
the show. And I was just wondering, how did the organization come about, and why did it start?
The reason we started was that the City of Hoboken and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey proposed a development at the South Waterfront that a number of us objected to. We thought it was out of scale for Hoboken, in that it would wall off the waterfront from the rest of the community. And
And this is along Pier A, correct?
it goes from Newark Street up to 4th Street.
Wow, okay.
That's the,
Wow.
those are the boundaries for the Port Authority project at the South Waterfront. So what we did was we put it on a ballot and subjected it to a public referendum.
Excellent.
And in July of 1990, we actually won that referendum. Not
Okay.
by a lot, but we managed to beat the political powers that be by their own game, which is getting out the vote. And and after that victory, we decided we should come up with our own plan for the entire Hoboken waterfront, because we felt what the city had proposed was sorely lacking. They had proposed a 33-story office tower where Pier A Park is now. They proposed 500,000 square feet of residential development on Pier C, where Pier C Park is now. And so we hired a planner, and we came up with a proposal for a continuous public waterfront park from the Hoboken Terminal all the way up to the Weehawken Cove. And this concept, this idea, really set us apart from the other Hudson River waterfront communities, because what they did was they went along with the minimum 30-foot state required walkway. Whereas here, by extending the public street grid down to the waterfront, so you have Sinatra Drive as the last street, and so the front doors of these buildings along the waterfront are facing the street, facing the park, and when you cross Sinatra Drive, you know you're coming into something that belongs to you, a public park.
Fantastic.
And today it is, it's come a long way. I mean, we're probably, I don't know, maybe 75% of the way there.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, there's just a few missing pieces that
That's
need
great.
to be finished.
That's great. Josh, go ahead. Yeah.
Do you think the success of the Fund for a Better Waterfront movement and crew of people played into the renaissance that Hoboken's had over the last decade or 2 decades or so?
Yes, I think so. It really, I hear from a lot of people now that one of the reasons they come to Hoboken is because of its waterfront. And of course, the park adds value to everything. It adds value to the development projects. It adds, but but to the whole region as well, because people come from all over. They come from Union City, Jersey City.
I mean, right, they walk their dogs here.
Yeah. When
they embrace the waterfront here.
Right. When we had a petition drive a year and a half ago, we got to talk to a lot of people on the waterfront, and it's something that's really enjoyed by all. It benefits, I think, all different aspects of our community.
And Ron, I'm sure I did read on the website that your organization, because of your tireless work, has won many awards over the years for your advocacy. I mean, can you just explain to the audience what type of awards you have won in terms of your tireless work for the Fund for a Better Waterfront?
Well, I'm trying to remember.
Right.
We did get a Hero of the Harbor award from the Waterfront Alliance. That was very gratifying.
Right.
But I think more significant is the awards that the park at the South Waterfront has gotten.
Right.
It got an award from the American
And
Society.
you should take credit for that.
Well, in part.
Right.
In part.
I mean, the park wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for your advocacy.
But it's not just the fact that we have a park, but also that the landscape design of that park is exceptional. All the, maybe 180 London plane trees from Newark Street all the way up to 4th. It's really quite extraordinary.
Unbelievable. And obviously you have faced really, really tough challenges over the last 30 years.
That's correct.
I mean, and before we get into probably your toughest challenge, which is located behind us, or your current toughest challenge, can you just explain some of the challenges you faced throughout the years in preserving our waterfront here in Hoboken?
Well, where we're standing now is actually a very good example of a development project where the developers proposed to build on this peninsula where we are now, to build on the pier at the north end of Maxwell Place Park, and also at the water's edge right there where the old coffee house, Maxwell Coffee House plant was. And we were able to work with the developers. We said, we think there's a better way to do this. We brought our planner over, we sat down with them, and we said, how about you build the same number of units on 4 upland blocks, and then extend the street grid right down to the waterfront, and everything on this side of Sinatra Drive will be a part of the continuous public waterfront park for Hoboken.
That's fantastic.
And they bought into it. They said, this is going to make our development project better than what it was originally.
Well, we do have to go to a quick break, Ron, but folks, when we come back, we'll still be joined by Mr. Ron Hine and Josh Sotomayor Einstein, and we will be tackling the controversy behind the Union Dry Dock. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Pulse of Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancavano, and we are still here in beautiful Maxwell Place Park, here on the Hoboken waterfront, joined by Ron Hine, the Executive Director of the Fund for a Better Waterfront in Hoboken, and of course, Josh Sotomayor Einstein, who is our political analyst every week here on the Pulse. And as you can see behind us, we have the Union Dry Dock. And as mentioned earlier in the show and a few weeks back when we discussed it, there's a little bit of controversy surrounding this, as New York Waterway has purchased the piece of land to use it as their ferry maintenance and refueling station. And the city of Hoboken is trying to finish up one of our last remaining pieces of our waterfront to make it a continuous walkway. So Ron, where do we stand in the process right now with Union Dry Dock? Is Governor Murphy getting involved? Do we still need to get Governor Murphy involved? What could you tell the public about where we stand?
Well, last April, there was an agreement between the governor's office and the city of Hoboken. They were to withdraw their eminent domain ordinance in exchange for New Jersey Transit rescinding their proposal to acquire the Union Dry Dock site.
Right.
And the governor promised to do an alternate site analysis as well. But since last April, we haven't heard anything. The governor has not said anything publicly. Apparently the city and the governor's office are having some talks, but we're not really privy to everything that's transpired. So So at this point, it's sort of up in the air. We're not sure.
And just so the public is aware, the reason why New Jersey Transit is involved now is because the city, if New Jersey Transit does acquire the Union Dry Dock from New York Waterway and lease it back to New York Waterway, the city then cannot move forward with eminent domain, correct?
That's correct.
Because New Jersey Transit is a government entity.
That's correct.
So,
But,
sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
But since we're here, I just want to point out a couple things about this location because it's truly unique. And behind you here is the only natural sand beach on the Hudson River, south of the George Washington Bridge.
Interesting.
On either side of the river. And it's the home of the Hoboken Cove Community Boathouse. They have a volunteer free program that puts 6,000 kayakers into this protected cove area every summer. And you have paddle boarders, you have a beautiful park here with a children's playground. Just south of the Union Dry Dock site, you have a skateboard park, which is truly unique. It's one of the few in the region. And then, of course, you have Elysian Park up on the hill there, just above, and the Stevens campus, and all this new residential housing just adjacent to the Union Dry Dock site. So it's to finish the continuous park at this site makes the most sense,
right? Because
it's become this recreational destination for so many people throughout the region. So it really the common sense solution is to add this to Hoboken's Park,
which of course is your mission at the Fund for a Better World.
Right.
Now,
and all these uses that I just mentioned are really not compatible with a ferry operation where they're going to be doing refueling, where they're going to be removing sanitary wastewater from the ferries. They'll be repairing boats, and this is not like the Union Dry Dock operation from before,
right,
where they repair barges. This is like something that could be going on 24 hours a day.
Excellent.
And the employees for New York Waterway would be driving through our city, along our waterfront. There'd be parking for 150 cars there.
Wow.
And for numerous shifts, for two, 3 shifts a day.
Operation, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this, Ron. Some residents, while discussing the controversy going on here, like to bring up Mayor Zimmer. When, of course, the former mayor of Hoboken, when she was in office, she had an opportunity to use eminent domain with the original Union Dry Dock owners. Am I right or wrong? And they're saying that, well, if you used eminent domain, then we wouldn't be in the conundrum we are right now, that New York Waterway purchased the land. Basically, that Hoboken waited too long. I mean, is that the case, or?
I don't think eminent domain was under consideration until New York Waterway actually purchased the site in November 2017.
Oh, I see. So it wasn't in consideration
Well,
before.
before that, we were pressing the city. We weren't saying, acquire the site through eminent domain. We were saying, put it on your open space inventory. Start making plans for making it part of the waterfront park. Make it a priority in the city's open space planning. But I don't think anyone back then was saying we should use eminent domain.
Right, because it was a family-owned company from what I remember, the Union Dry Dock.
Correct.
And did the city have the opportunity to then just purchase the land outright?
Sure, it was for sale. We've been saying that. We've been saying that for a couple of years. So, it's for sale. The price had come down to a more reasonable amount.
And what was that reasonable amount? I'm just curious. Do you remember offhand, or?
12 million.
It was 12 million.
Yeah, and New York Waterway bought it for 11.5.
So the city almost dropped. I don't want to say they dropped the ball, but it kind of looks like they dropped the ball when they could have purchased it outright. Instead, New York Waterway swooped in and purchased it themselves for $500,000 left. You don't have to say it. I did.
No, that's very accurate.
Exactly.
That's quite accurate.
I think it's clear that the city dropped the ball, as Pete said. And it's also fairly clear that the Governor Murphy is just interested in commenting. What would you say to those in our community or those in northern New Jersey who take the ferry into the city? It's a major method of people commuting from New Jersey to work in the city and then back. who think that having an effective ferry system is more important than completing, say, the final 5% of the public space that is the waterfront in New Jersey?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. And we agree that the ferry service that is being provided now between New Jersey and Manhattan is an integral part of the regional transportation system. And we don't want to do anything that would diminish that transportation option for people who want to use the ferry to get back and forth to New York. But this operation here could take place in any number of different places. New Jersey Transit did a study in 2009 that identified 5 sites as more suitable than Union Dry Dock. 2 in Weehawken, 1 in Jersey City, 1 in Bayonne, and the Hoboken Terminal at the south end of town. And then the city of Hoboken last year did a study of their own and came to a similar conclusion. They identified 3 sites that were more preferable than the Union Dry Dock site. So this could go any number of different places that would be much more appropriate, and it wouldn't take anything away from the ferry service, which is not only going to continue but expand in the future.
So you don't think people in those communities that you mentioned might have the same reaction of that some might call as NIMBY, not in my backyard? It's a great idea in theory, and we need it for the region, but I don't want it in this location because it's too close to me.
And excuse me, Ron, we're going to hold that thought 1 second because we're out of time in this segment. Folks, when we come back, you'll hear Ron's answer. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Pulse of Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano, still here in beautiful Maxwell Place Park in Hoboken, still joined by Ron Hine, the Executive Director of the Fund for a Better Waterfront, and Mr. Josh Sotomayor Einstein, our political analyst every week here on the Pulse. And we were going to break in the last segment. Josh asked a question about not in my backyard regarding the ferries moving to possibly other local municipalities here in Hudson County. And we cut you off, or we didn't even make you answer the question. So go ahead, Ron.
Well, the Hoboken Terminal site at the south end of town is 80 acres, owned by New Jersey Transit, and it's designated for transportation purposes. It's not adjacent to any residential neighborhood like we are here. It's a very big area, and it really has enough room to accommodate pretty much everything they want to do. But and also some of the other sites, like the Greenville Pier in Jersey City is an industrial site, as is the Bayonne Peninsula as well. And the city of Hoboken actually identified some other places further up the river that also could be more appropriate, that are commercial, not residential. So I think a solution can be found, and it doesn't necessarily, all the things that they need to do for a ferry maintenance refueling facility don't necessarily have to be done at one location. So it could be broken up possibly, and so that no one area bears the full brunt of that operation.
Now, was it New York Waterway that released a statement saying that Bayonne is too far for, for a refueling site, and we're going to have to increase our fares and so on and so forth? I mean,
that's correct.
I guess, what is the response to that?
Well, they say that they want a central location.
Right.
Well, the Hoboken Terminal is a central location.
Exactly.
So, that's one answer.
Right, and now just looking behind me here, or behind us we should say, it looks like the pier here is in desperate need of repair, and obviously Hoboken won't release those permits until there is a solution to what they actually want to do here.
Right.
And I believe New York Waterway has been on record saying that Lackawanna would be, I guess, more of a cost for them to repair in that terminal. Do you think that's a viable reason, or that they can't move there? I
don't think New York Waterway is going to pay for that.
Right.
I think that the state and federal government would be most likely picking up the tab for any kind of pier repairs that are required for doing whatever operation they have. And And we did look at the capital budget for New Jersey Transit, and there is money in there for that purpose.
Oh, wow.
I think maybe, I don't know, $8 or $9 million, something like that.
That's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So, Ron, I guess the $1 million question is, do you actually believe in your heart, and I know you've been doing this for close to 30 years, that there will be a resolution on this, that this area, this 3-acre piece of land will be a park for the residents of Hoboken? And how long? Give me a timetable. When do you actually think that it will be accomplished?
Hard to say. The thing that is to our advantage is we have tremendous political support for preventing the ferry maintenance facility from locating at this spot.
Right.
And Mayor Bala has really shown some very strong leadership on this issue. And the Hoboken City Council is also in total agreement.
It's funny, they don't agree on anything, but seems
right.
like they agree on it.
And then you have Senators Stack, Senators Sacco, Mayor Fulop, County Executive Tom DeGeese. All these people are supporting Hoboken on this issue.
Right.
So I think that may be the key to our success. And I can only hope. I can only hope after nearly 3 decades of trying to complete the waterfront park and the development of the Hoboken waterfront. You can only hope.
And it's 75% complete, would you say? And this will be certainly closer to probably 90% complete if this can be turned into a park.
Yeah, and also completing the central waterfront. So everything south of here down to 4th Street. If the city were to develop that to the same quality as the south waterfront, it would be truly extraordinary. It would set Hoboken way apart from the other communities.
Exactly. Well, we do have a little bit of time here, Ron. So I was wondering if you want to bring up any type of events or initiatives that the Fund for a Better Waterfront might have in the pipeline coming down in the next few months. As we hear these helicopters over our heads.
on March 9th.
Okay.
We're going to march from Pier Park all the way up the waterfront to this site.
Oh, very
and
cool.
Then there'll be a rally. We'll have a number of speakers. And so, of course, we want everybody to join us to express their support for completing the park here at Union Dry Dock.
That's fantastic. That's March 9th. That'll be a week from today. You can find more information on the Fund for a Better Waterfront at, tell me your fundforabetterwaterfront.org, is it?
It's betterwaterfront.org.
Betterwaterfront.org, excuse me, not fund. Josh, anything to add while we have Mr. Ron Hine here? Or he seems so focused and mesmerized about what you've been saying.
Well, I mean, it's just really important information for everybody in the town, and I think that there are definitely a lot of people that want the Union Dry Dock to be a public park. I think there's also a sizable chunk that is just very satisfied with the way the waterfront is right now, and doesn't believe that it's urgent that we deindustrialize that area. They see it sort of as the last vestige of Hoboken's seafaring history.
Right.
And so they're okay with having a business that'll bring in 150 people to eat at our local restaurants. And so I think there's a segment of the town which is 100% okay with the Union Dry Dock still being there. So I think the challenge to the Fund for a Better Waterfront is how do you persuade the people that are like, oh, I like the waterfront. I like what the Fund for a Better Waterfront has done so far. I'm satisfied. The perfect is often the enemy of the good. So what would you say to those people?
Well, it's I think they don't realize what the negative impact of putting that facility in this particular location. It would not be compatible with the recreational uses. It would not be compatible with the residential uses. And we're talking about something very different than the Union Dry Dock operation, which was repairing barges. There was no refueling. They had one shift, 5 days a week.
Right.
So it's a dramatic difference between what's being proposed and what's taken place in the past.
That's very interesting. Well, thank you, Ron, for joining us. Ron Hine, the Executive Director of the Fund for a Better Waterfront. And of course, Josh Sotomayor Einstein, our political analyst every week here on the Pulse of Peter B. Folks, we'll be back next week with an all-new Pulse. We'll see you then. Have a great week.